Hi, it's Amelia here from Undercover Architect. In this video, I speak to Stuart Lee of Craftsman Quality Builders. So, Stuart is a builder based in Victoria. He is a certified passive house tradesperson. So, he's done the course in to become a certified passive house tradesperson. And he is also the builder on the Our Woods passive house that we've been talking about both on the podcast and here on the channel. I this conversation is just a fantastic insight, not only into passive house and what it takes to build a passive house from a builder's point of view, the extra quality, the extra attention to detail, the systems and processes that they have to implement and be audited against in order to ensure that the home is performing the way that it's predicted to. But it's also just a really great insight into what you should expect from any builder that you're working with. I seek to introduce these kinds of professionals to you more and more in the UA community because for me, this is about you knowing what the gold standard is, knowing what you should be waiting for, seeking, not settling and demanding from those that you're working with. And when you hear Stuart talk about the importance of honest communication, collaboration, teamwork, everybody respecting each other, everybody working in an open book and transparent way, the attention to detail, the quality, all of those types of things, I think that it will give you an insight into what you should be looking for when you're looking for a builder for your project. Okay, so whether you're building or renovating, have a listen to this. See if the passive house might be something that you want to explore, but more so listen to how Stuart talks and see if that's the kind of feeling that you're getting from the builders and contractors that you're interviewing for your project, and that's the way that they're talking about the process of working with you. I really hope that you enjoy this interview. So, Stuart, thanks so much for joining me here. It's actually really fantastic to be speaking to you as the builder of the Our Woods Passive House. And I think you're going to be able to share a huge amount of insight with the UA community about just how the builder's role is really important in making a passive house happen, because what I've certainly learnt is just the quality of the build is so crucial to the actual end performance of the home. So I'm really, grateful to be talking to you here today, and I'm really excited to think about what we'll be sharing with the UA community. So I've been asking everybody this question. What does passive house actually mean to you? How do you describe it when people ask you what it is?
What it means to me is I'm super passionate about passive house, and anyone who talks to me about it understands that. What it means for me, it was around the environment, wanting to build a home that had as minimal environmental impact going forward as I could. So when I learnt about the passive house standard and being able to save a lot of energy through it, I thought this is for me. I've got to build these houses. So, and this is where I'm at now, and that's what we're doing.
And so you touch on that idea of why you think obviously homeowners should build a passive house, that it is much lower energy use. What are some of the other reasons that you think it makes a really significant and worthwhile difference to a home, and why homeowners should consider it?
Well, my first thoughts were the energy efficiency, but that's just a byproduct of what a passive house actually is. So the passive house is built for comfort. That's what it was designed around. And having a home that people could live in that's comfortable, the design to stay between 20 and 25 degrees, and with a relative humidity of around 50 to 55%. And so dust mites can't grow. You can have filters in the ventilation system. So if you suffer from allergies, your home becomes a sanctuary. And my main thing was energy efficiency. That's why I went down it. And so for me, the byproduct is comfort. But that's the biggest thing is a house that's you've got control of the air. So you can have the ability to heat and cool that with minimal systems, and so this is why I think that it's important that people look into it. And that's my biggest thing was comfort, really. There's another one. So
and you've become a certified passive house tradesperson, so you've done the course and obviously made a commitment to doing that. What compelled you to actually bite the bullet, do the training, and go from just doing sort of eco and passive houses that couldn't necessarily be certified to actually being a certified passive house tradesperson?
Well, I learned about PassivHaus at a Master Builders Green Living conference. The Claire Parry, who is really involved with PassivHaus, she was one of the leaders on the board at the time, and I saw her speak, and I didn't know about PassivHaus before that conference, and when Claire talked and explained what it was, I just thought, this is for me. I've got to investigate this. And the next thing, there was a course, a PassivHaus Tradesman's course in a couple of months. So I signed up for that, and that's where I went. And it's been something that I'm really grateful to have found, because it really resonates with me for what I want to be building. And the having being airtight and everything, and having the tangible reading that you get, so you do the air tightness, and it's testing how good you made the house, and the attention to detail is really important for a passive house, and my team and I are really passionate about getting the houses as tight as possible, and being able to challenge ourselves and to get a really good reading. That's another thing that I love about it, is it's actually known too. So you have this, it's a scientific program that tells you whether you're going to be a certified passive house or not, and so it's known. Yeah, your energy consumption and everything's known due to those factors. So.
Yeah, this is something that's been coming through really loud and clear, is just the ability that the passive house, the actual data, the reporting system, the testing and measuring, what that gives you in the ability to be able to predict the performance of the house whilst you're designing it, and then to be able to test that the construction of the house has been done appropriately according to those measurements and those predictions. And I think, so much about building and renovating for homeowners is just that lack of certainty, that lack of assurance that they're going to be getting it right. And I think this passive house actually offers a really unique opportunity to have that data collection, that reporting system happening right throughout the process. And I'm certainly seeing that those who have become committed to this as professionals, both in the building industry, design industry, consultants, those types of things, and the clients are incredibly passionate about the role that passive house can play in the impact it can have on the environment, and the quality of lifestyle and environment that it creates for a homeowner. So it's in terms of being a community, like I think I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. It's a it's a community that I'm really grateful to have found, because it's extraordinary to see. I do really see this becoming kind of the next big thing that I can't think of anything else in my career as an architect that, not at a residential level, at a commercial level, yes, but not at a residential level, that really gives you that ability to test, predict, measure, and then report the performance of something in the way that this does for homes. So it's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. So the process is quite involved. So you've got to, when a designer designs a house to be passive house, it has to be run through a program called the PHPP, which is the Passive House Property Planner, I believe. Someone's probably going to pull me up on that. That's probably not right. But anyway, and anyway, that's a software that actually all the house gets entered into that. I don't know how, because I don't use it, but it gets modeled, and then that tells you whether the house will be able to be certified or not. So once you have the designer run those figures, or you can have a consultant, so you can have an architect. So Talina, who did the Al Woods house, she wasn't a certified designer at the start. However, so we employed a consultant then, Luke Plowman, to run the figures, but it is then checked by another certifier. So it has to go from the designer to a certifier. They have to then model the house again, and then it then goes to Germany to get modeled again to make sure that it does meet where it has to be. So it's taking the human error factor out of it, because we do all make mistakes, and we see the same mistakes over and over again, and it takes another set of eyes in order to be able to recheck those workings. So you're guaranteed virtually at the end that the house is going to perform it the way that it's designed to. And with the way that we have to take photos of all the material that's delivered, send in all the delivery dockets, it has to be proven that it's been built to the design. And so you guaranteed, the homeowner, I guess, is guaranteed that the house will perform the way it's meant to. And I think that that's really important, because I don't think there's any other standard. Well, there probably is, but not in Australia anyway. There's no, like the energy, the 5-star energy rating or 6-star, whatever it's got to be. That's only on paper. It's not checked. Insulation's not checked, anything like that. It's just taking someone's word for it, basically. And so with PassivHaus, it's all checked and double checked, and it's known. So.
And so obviously that, my next question was going to be, how different is it building a passive house to building a mainstream residential home? You've spoken about some of those audits and checks along the way. Are you finding, I can imagine as a builder, it requires you to perform to quite a different standard in terms of your administrative levels, your systems, perhaps the construction detailing that you're using. Can you just touch on some of those things in terms of explaining to a homeowner, because I can hear a homeowner going, wow, I could actually know that I'm getting what I'm paying for if my builder is going to be audited at that level. What are some of the other things that you're having to do that you wouldn't ordinarily do in a residential home?
So attention to detail is probably the biggest thing, and having really well detailed plans. So that's probably, like, there is more work involved, yes. The biggest thing that does come up that I have found is cost, and people want to know, is it going to cost more? Yeah, it is going to cost more than, but what are you comparing it to? That's the problem. If you got to compare apples with apples, and what we're doing is, for what you get, it is sort of not more expensive, because it's just the time that it takes, the materials that are going in. But then when you base the lifespan of the home, and I believe that it's 60 years, which is what the PassivHaus standard wants to deliver, is for a 60-year period. You look at the cost over that period, and it pays for itself very quickly. But what we have to do is, there's a few more things. So airtightness is stepped up. So we have to wrap the home really well, and tape and seal windows, and depending on what wall systems used, there's a few different ways to do it, but there can be more material involved. We have better performing windows and greater insulation. So with all those combined, that can bump up the price, not a huge amount, depending on design. So it's, it can be done more budget conscious than not, or you can go as wild as you like. So it's just detail.
Is that the kind of stuff that you learn because obviously when you're doing your tradesperson certification through PassivHaus, you mentioned that you don't know how to operate the software. So obviously they're teaching you slightly different content than what they might be teaching the consultant certification. Are you learning all of those systems and processes in terms of having to photograph everything, having to send all the dockets in, all of those types of things? Is that part of the training that you're getting? And then do you get sort of checklists of all of the things that you need to be doing as part of your PassivHaus responsibility?
You do learn those things. It's been a few years since I did the course, so it's just through experience that I have worked out some of the other details of building the house. You just learn about thermal bridging and all the elements involved with the PassivHaus. You don't actually, the course didn't really teach you how to implement those things, though. For me, it just came second nature, and because I'm a very detailed person anyway, so that was good for me that we learnt that way, and plus the team that I have, they're very detailed as well, so that was good. But with the course, so the PHPP software and everything, that's more on a design level, but for a tradesman, it's just understanding the implication if something's changed, or yeah, understanding what's going to happen if you don't implement a certain thing at a certain time. So it's basically experience is probably the best way to learn PassivHaus. Unfortunately, you because there's so many different ways you can do it, I guess. So yeah,
it is a system, isn't it? It's that thing of when I was chatting to Talina, she said, when people sort of say, oh, look, can I, perhaps this is beyond my budget, I might just do the double glazing. And it's like, well, if you're going to do the double glazing, you might as well then make sure that the seal is done properly around the windows. And then if you're going to do the seal, then you might as well do the thermal bridging. And, all of this type, it sort of becomes this snowball effect of the fact that it doesn't really work unless the whole system is working together and you're approaching it in a comprehensive way. And so I can imagine that during construction, when things might change, details might not necessarily, particularly in a renovation project, for example, details might not be what you anticipate, or you might not be able to source a specific material or something like that. And you do have to make those decisions and choices, that the knowledge that you would have as a PassivHaus tradesperson of understanding the then flow-on effect of that. I always tell my feeling is that the great quality builders, generally, they have fantastic systems. They have that great attention to detail, and they're really good at proactively planning, at forward planning and understanding that flow-on effect. They don't just make decisions in the moment. They understand that decision is going to mean another 12 decisions potentially, or even more, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the track, and then in the lifespan of the home. So I think that's great that you talk about that need for experience, the need for training, and also understanding the building as an overall system, and how PassivHaus is so critically reliant on the performance of the system. So your role in our woods is PassivHaus is one that we definitely encourage in Undercover Architect, and that's as a collaborative partner brought very early in. Can you talk to me, because from what I understand from Talina, it was actually you that said, hey, how about we make this a PassivHaus, and started this whole adventure for everyone. How did you become involved? Is that the kind of role that you ordinarily play? What do you see the value of being that collaborative partner is right up front for homeowners that might be delaying bringing their builder on board? What would you say to them in terms of thinking about that, and how it worked for you in our woods?
For me, I think it's really important to be involved right from the start. The way that people come across me and our work is through word of mouth, and understanding that the houses, this is the type of house they want, and they want us to build it, basically. So if you find a builder that you really resonate with, and you want to build your house, I think that it's really important to get them involved early on. The Our Woods, that was a collaborative effort, as you say. So it wasn't just me that sort of not pushed PassivHaus, but gave them the idea of PassivHaus. I probably did start talking about it, and the way that I get lit up around it, that's what I think. That's what
your passion is
contagious.
Yeah.
Prompted the journey, and everyone said, well, why not? And as you touched on earlier, you can't half do it, because you can, but you just don't know. So the thing is that it is a complete system, and so you can do more insulation, but without doing a vapor barrier, where's that moisture going to go? And then if you do a vapor barrier, you've got to put mechanical ventilation in, because you need fresh air all the time. So yeah, it is you've got to do it all together, basically. And then if you're going to implement the principles, the way that I've found the few jobs that I've been involved with that are wanting to only just do the principles because they weren't feeling to go the whole PassivHaus route. Then once the house was modelled, they realised that it was very close to being certified. So people go, well, if it's so close, why don't we just go the whole way? And I'm really grateful that people decide to go, yeah, we're going to do the whole thing, because then at the end of the day, you're going to walk away from the house knowing what your consumption is going to be, and it will be like that for forever. And so that's just where I've landed. Oh, sorry. Back to I'll get off on a bit of a tangent. I'm sorry, Amelia.
It's all good.
But back to working with the builder, with through the design process. I think that's super important because, you know, architects and designers, they're not builders. Builders are not architects, and you know, working with the homeowner as well for what they want. I think that with the group effort, you can be able to deliver a house within the desired budget, and not take it out to tender phase and get 3 or 4 different prices in and wondering why they're all so different. I think that, you know, if you've got a builder that you really love and you can work together, you're honest, you're all open and honest, because basically the Passive House in our woods, that was an open book like quoting process, you know, and I'm happy to do that because it costs what it costs. You know, I'm not trying to hide anything to anyone. You know, this is how it is. So if you've got someone you can trust and you work with like that, I think that it's great that you can all be involved. And a lot of the projects and other architects that I'm working with currently are aligned to the same way that you're speaking, that we need to all work together to create something that people can not only afford but want to be in as well.
Yeah, it's just fantastic to hear you talk that way about the process of supporting. I mean, ultimately supports the client in a really special way through the project. And what I've experienced from meeting each of you as a member of the Our Woods Passive House team is just the team cohesiveness, which has been able to be developed obviously through this collaborative relationship that started back at the design phase. And so, you know, for homeowners that are thinking about this, whether they're building or renovating, I think you can hear from the way that Stuart's speaking is just the value that each role has in the team, the level of respect and for each other's skills, and what then happens in terms of you, Stuart, and the role that you can play in the construction, because you're not undermining the design. You're not, you know that what the client has asked for, you know the conversations that have occurred, you know the compromises or the choices that have been made, so it doesn't get derailed at that process, you know. It's and so the client's not having to be the one fighting for their home the whole time. They've got this supportive team who are all on the same page and have understood what it's taken to get here, and now they just want to get what they're paying for and what they've dreamed about all this time, you know. So it's I think that it's such a great lesson for just how well this process can work. Just as a side note, do you actually charge to come? I know lots of builders do. That's a very small fee that is very usually nowhere near the time that they actually give in terms of the quoting and that collaboration. But what it does is obviously just then put skin in the game. It's a commitment, and it means that there's some value exchange for what's being done. Do you charge for that initial quoting and for being part of the design team?
At this stage, I haven't, but I going forward, I am going to, and because, you know, everyone's time is valuable, and you got to be reimbursed for your time. However, the way that I'm going to approach it is that that time will be a lump sum sort of payment worked out, and then once the project goes ahead, that'll be absorbed within the contract price. And if they don't decide to use me as a builder, then I'll get reimbursed for your time. And obviously, it's not 100% of your time, but that's okay. You know, like, my biggest thing is to like give people greater knowledge in the building industry too. So if they decide not to use me, then that's fine. I know that something else will come along. But so I'm just wanting to give more people as much information as they can to make the best decision possible for them and their house.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that it's something that is worthwhile for homeowners to understand, is that I'm seeing more and more builders doing this, wanting to be part of the design process, understanding the value of their involvement very early on. You know, architects don't always, know all of the ins and outs of construction. They don't know all the options of construction as well. Builders will have specific ways of doing things that work for their systems and their staff and their team. And so to be able to bring in that constructability knowledge early on means that you actually create a buildable home. And I think that for a builder to be paid in some way, shape or form for that time, that enables a builder to do is go, okay, I'm not doing this from my kitchen table at 10 o'clock at night. I can actually have a couple of hours in the office where I can send out and get this properly quoted. You get a very detailed quote then from a builder rather than just a one-line item on a letter. And it just means that everybody's building respect and regard for each other's value that they bring. So I think that that's great. And I think too, it's also worthwhile you saying that, you know, doesn't necessarily mean that it will always go through. It does give the homeowner still always has the option to terminate and decide to go with somebody else. I think that you want to know, don't you, before you start construction, whether a builder's a good fit for you or not, rather than during construction, don't you? So,
well, you've both got to qualify. It's you got to feel. You just got to feel if you can work together, and everyone's got different personalities and everything, and it's just some people are a match, some people aren't. So I think that it's important to go through a process to understand whether you are a match or not, and it goes both ways. That's the client and the builder, and if you both don't think that you can work together, then I think that's important not to just go forward, really. But the other thing about working with a builder early on too is the element of surprise is taken out. So if things on site come up, there's less chance of massive variations coming in and everything like that. And the biggest variation that will come in is if a client decides to change their mind, and that's okay. Like, anything can be done. But yeah, often with a set of plans that you just go out for tender, there can be some real grey areas, and depends how it's detailed and everything like that. So sometimes there's an honest way of pricing, and sometimes there's a dishonest way of pricing. So it depends on the builder, and I'm on the honest way. Yeah. But some people want to go in and know that there's going to be areas to hit with variations, and I think that if you work with a builder prior to that, then you can alleviate some of those unknowns.
Flesh all that out, can't you? Yeah. And you can also get on a builder's timeline. Like, I can imagine you're a pretty busy, in-demand guy. So, so I think that then for you to know, okay, well, this is where this project is at. So I'm going to put a window in my calendar so I know that we can keep things moving, and this person doesn't have to wait 6 months till I'm ready to start. So, I really... I think that I'm hoping that this is a big shift in the industry as well, that there's much more collaborative approach. There's a lot of architects who are anti-builders and designers who are anti-builders, and there's a lot of builders who are anti-architects and designers. And I think that we work best when we work together as a team. That's when we deliver the best to the client. And, for me, Undercover Architect was always about helping the client and the homeowner get the best from this process. And so, I think it's really great to be talking about this. So, obviously that collaboration was super important in Elwood's PassivHaus. And you are obviously able to give then the client an understanding of cost along the way, help them see where their decisions were going to be more expensive, whether they wanted to compromise, do those types of things. Yep. The feedback that I always get when people say, oh, look, I spoke to a builder, I want to do when they're just saying I want to do a sustainable home, and the builder immediately says it's going to be more expensive. You touched on it before, it can be a bit more expensive, but there's obviously that trade-off with the life of the home. How, down to the nuts and bolts of it, is somebody going to actually have to find an extra, 50K, 100K, like, 10, 20%, like, what are we, I know it's tricky, but because it's how long is a piece of string sort of thing, but is it just available for people who have premium budgets, or is it something that can be done at a more affordable level for people?
Yeah, look, you're right. It is how long's a piece of string, but at the same time, it's anything can be built. It's just, if you've got a set budget in mind, you might have to just compromise on size. So that's the thing. That's the biggest thing that I've been finding, is that our Australian mentality is big is better, which is not right. I'm a massive hypocrite, by the way. I'm going to be building a huge home, but I'm not the only one doing that, though. So there's a few more people involved with that one. But anyway,
and it will be a PassivHaus.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's but it's not an architectural one, mind you. So it's just a big rectangle because I've got to pay for it. So anyway,
so that's your trade-off. You've gone big, but you've gone less on the articulation of form, less on the detailing. Obviously, it's more going to be a very simple container. rather than
basically,
perhaps
yeah.
like the Our Woods home, which is a, you know, set of pavilions, and, you know,
Yep.
that comes with it because of the floor to wall ratio. That's going
Hmm.
to come with additional costs. So
It
yeah,
does,
so
yeah.
you can obviously, it's either a trade off in size or a trade off in those features and detail and all of that type of thing. So
That's right. So a friend of mine, who I did the Passive House course with, he's another good builder. Um, he a Passive House builder too. He worked out. He built his own house and built it to a standard that was comparable to sort of average houses. So my cat's
is that
out
a
the
pussy
window.
cat
Just
outside?
yeah, I wanted to get inside anyway. And he worked out the figures. It was roughly about 10 to 15% was the added cost, if you were to, and he was comparing like for like in that one. Whereas for me, a lot of my stuff um, uh, hasn't been standard sort of housing. Like, it's always custom built. So to understand like for like, I don't have that comparison. But I know that the 15% won't be relative with a higher scope. Like, so if you're already a high end architectural build, the 15%, that's huge money, and that's not necessarily going to be the right for Passive House. And as I touched on earlier, it was wall systems can be simplified and everything like that. So, but as a rough guide, I reckon we could say 15% would be where we need to aim for. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Extra.
for me, I think that possibly, because I can see that the ventilation system, the extraction and ventilation system, would pretty much compensate for air conditioning that you'd be putting in the home. So if you're planning on having either split systems or something like that, does it end up kind of those two costs would cancel each other out, or would the
No, not really. So mechanical ventilation is only designed to give you clean, fresh air all the time. It doesn't actually. It goes through a heat recovery process. So you're not replacing cold with hot and hot with cold, basically. But it's not actually designed to be a heating or cooling element. It's only designed for clean, fresh air all the time. So,
Yep. Yeah,
and
no, I
because
get
they're
that.
not,
I get that. What I was more
sorry.
referring to was the cost of the systems. So if you're getting obviously all the thermal settings of your house done with the insulation and the air tightness and the thermal
Mm,
bridging and all that kind of stuff, so that you can maintain that indoor air temperature, and then you're
mhm.
putting in that mechanical ventilation system, rather than you doing a standard house with basic insulation and a fully ducted air conditioning system.
Okay,
For
I see what you're
me, I
saying.
can
Yep,
see that there wouldn't be a huge variance, I don't think, in the cost between those two choices. Is that,
that's right.
would I
So
be?
this, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely correct there. Because the systems that are used are far smaller. But like, say, you do need additional heating and cooling, like that does need to happen. But what you would typically need on a big house, so you're going to have potentially you have a ducted heating system and a ducted cooling system, and what are they, 15 grand each or something like that potentially. So you can put that money into air tightness, heat recovery, and then you still need like you'd probably get away with a 5 kilowatt system or something that's 3 grand or whatever, or 4,000, I don't know. But there is offsets, as you say. And we got a quote for another job, that from a standard HVAC supplier, to say that their cooling system, because the client wanted a just really discreet system with bulkheads and everything like that. It was going to be 35 grand just for the cooling system. And so, I said to him, why don't we just put that $35,000 into the insulation and air tightness? And yeah, you're right. Like, it does, and we will put 5 grand into a heating and cooling system.
Yeah.
So there is an offset there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do see, because I think that people, they look at that flat cost too of the, I mean, from my, what I see most ducted air conditioning systems costing is sort of anywhere between $15,000 and $30,000, as you say, depending on
Hmm.
the level of then the way that they're hidden inside the home.
Yep.
And of course, then you're looking at then the running costs of those things, and electricity bills that end up being between 2 and 2.5 grand a quarter to run that particularly if you've got a house that then isn't thermally going to keep that air in, so,
That's
you're
right.
going to pump all this hot air or pump all this cold air in, and it's just going to dissipate because you don't have an
Yep.
airtight home or an insulated home. So where
Yep.
I see the big cost difference, that is from my conversations with Passive House community and from just my own research, is in that glazing choice. And I think that Australia's probably lagging quite considerably in that we still do use single glazing for most hot projects, and so that's our base comparison, whereas you go to a lot of other countries that have similar climate variations as we do, and double glazing is their base comparative. So to then do double glazing or triple glazing in a passive house isn't a big step up, whereas for Australians who are used to doing single glazing and having just these sieves of glass that let heat in and out very, very easily, to then make the choice to go to double or triple glazing is a big jump. I can see that there's and we do like our big sheets of glass with our big indoor-outdoor connections as well, and not everybody always worries about which direction they're facing. So it's, I think that obviously there's that decision-making. If you can get the designer in running it through and you're looking at doing a passive house, modelling system and looking at that and bringing the builder in early and comparing those choices of double glazing, triple glazing, and wanting to understand the difference. Then, we had Tracy Gramlich, who's the CEO of the Australian Window Association, on the podcast a little while ago, and she was imploring everybody to do double glazing just as a standard, so it is, I think, one of those things that's going to be really interesting to see what the residential construction industry does moving forward, and whether we do lift the game generally so that there's a new base level for what performance actually means in a home. So,
but just on that, the glazing isn't the be all and end all, though, of where our houses are getting let down. I don't think the glazing's up there. However, draft sealing probably would be one of the most important things, because if you don't have control of the air in your home, how are you going to be able to heat and cool that at a rate that's not astronomical? The house that I'm going to be renovating was an old 70s house. It's a typical Australian house, and we burnt over 12 tons of wood one year, and we kept one room warm. And that was for like 3 months. It was ridiculous, and that's because the heat just went straight outside, and obviously with it being leaky, when that fireplace was roaring, it's sucking in all the cold air from everywhere else, and this is the problem that we're trying to deal with treat the symptoms and not the cause. And so, people putting bigger fires in and everything like that to try and get the place warmer, whereas you need to just start sealing it up a bit better. Then it'll be better. So just based on that, so that was a 200 square meter home that I burnt about 12 tons of wood one year to keep warm one room. Now, if that was a passive house, I would only have to have burnt 600 kilos of wood to be able to keep that at 25 degrees.
That is a big difference, isn't it?
That's the difference. Yeah, 200 square meter home. So it's about 3 kilos of wood per square meter per annum. So that's the heating load that I would have need to have burnt to keep that at the level that it needs at 25 degrees.
That's
and that
incredible.
House was not 25 degrees.
Yeah.
One room was. So
you were 40 degrees in front of the fireplace and everywhere else was 12. Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah, we had a newborn son and everything, and it was horrendous. So anyway, but that's not uncommon. That's Australia.
That is.
We're so far behind. It's crazy. But so glazing is super important. I agree with you there. However, I think that there's some other things that can be addressed prior to that. Like, say, if people are looking at renovating their home and everything, I think that find the leaks first and maybe block them up, and then check your insulation, and then move on to your windows. So, they're a bit higher on the pyramid than everyone might think.
Awesome. No, that's great advice. So now, are you only building passive homes these days? You mentioned that you've got some people who get close and then they decide to go the whole hog when they realise that they're that close. Is that now your sort of benchmark? You want to just be building passive homes?
I'd like to, yeah, because you can't unknow it. You can't unknow something. And now that I know what works, it works for me anyway. It might not work for everyone because people are different, and that's okay. But it really works for me. And so if people are drawn to get me to build their house, they obviously want a passive house, because that's what I'm really passionate about. And as long as I can implement the principles, it doesn't necessarily have to be certified. So the principles are really important, and for the biggest one, as I've mentioned, was airtightness, and heat recovery. I think that if you can implement that, your home would be far more comfortable than what you would ever experienced. And even though if you still use your standard 2.5 wall bats or anything like that, so if you can make it airtight and have mechanical ventilation, there's no point putting mechanical ventilation if you don't have it airtight. Otherwise, it's not doing its job. But I think that one in itself is probably the best way to have a far more comfortable home than what anyone would be used to in Australia anyway at the moment. But so passive houses is where the next 4 houses or something I've got coming up, they're all passive house. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you seeing, we touched on this earlier, but for me, what I'm learning obviously about passive house is that it just demands a really high level of attention and detail that you pretty much want from any builder building your home.
Yeah.
You want that level of attention and detail and quality, and that assurance that what is going into the house is what you've specified, that the detailing is being done as per what you would want, because it all gets hidden obviously underneath the walls and the lining. And a lot of homeowners don't know how to kind of check that along the way and just have to trust that it's being done accurately. But obviously passive house gives you the opportunity to have that properly reported and audited and measured. Are you seeing that homeowners are feeling, that's one of the reasons? It's from what I've been seeing and talking to passive house community, there's a definite commitment to the fact that this is good not only for people but for the planet. There's an environmental passion as much as this being about comfortable homes. Where I see a huge opportunity is homeowners understanding that this is a way to be sure you're getting what you're paying for. Do you see that just being a lovely fringe benefit, or are you saying that homeowners are really responding to that, I suppose, and really enjoying that part of the process?
Not necessarily, because I don't think the majority of people who I've worked with anyway, as a passive house homeowner or potential homeowner, understand the strict criteria that we have to abide by. I think that they appreciate that it does get all modelled and it will become a passive house, but I don't think they understand what's involved to get there. And I don't think you'd have to be a certified tradesman, a passive house tradesman, in order to build one. I think that if you're just a detailed builder and a very good builder, that wouldn't, you'd be able to build a passive house anyway and follow the plans. But so doing the checks and everything like that, I don't think at this stage I've had any understanding that a homeowner is wanting us to build them a house based on that. It's just they want a passive house and just go and do it. so I like to challenge myself with, particularly with the airtightness and everything like that, and because we've got some pretty outstanding results in the past, and so just you don't need to. I think the checks and that are important, but I'm getting lost again.
No, I think that it's no, I think that it's interesting, isn't it? Because for me that's been the thing that's jumped out. It's been holy cow, here is an actual data-driven system that enables you, like we were saying, to test the design, to check that it's going to actually predict the performance of the home thermally. Whilst you're designing it, you bring in a builder who's then going to help you work collaboratively to ensure that the cost is in alignment with the design. They come on board as a team member, and then they build this house, and then they've got a bunch of hoops to jump through, and it's over and above what the building code requires of you, what the certification or the permitting process requires of you. Standard homes do have those checks and balances where the certifier will come in and look at things, or the structural engineer will come in and look at things. So that's all still occurring, obviously, in a passive house, because that's, according to the local codes. But then there's this whole thing like your blower test and all of those types of things where you actually have to demonstrate that, the house is going to hold air, that the house is going to keep the temperature, all of those kinds of, sort of the proof, I suppose, that it's being delivered. So yeah, it's interesting because I'm actually curious to see whether people go, well, it's nice that I'm going to make a difference to the environment, but I love the fact that I'm not going to have any expensive electricity bills. I love the fact that I'm going to be able to not have a house with mold or dust. And I love that I know that the builder is going to have to jump through all of these hoops and by necessity have a higher level of attention to detail potentially than I might expect from another builder. So I can see that it just demands a level of performance that Undercover Architect's always been about educating homeowners so that they know the questions to ask, they know how to demand better from the people that they're working with. To me, this puts a system in place that says, hey, it's there. So it's I find it really fascinating to see what the I think obviously now all the adopters are, they seem to me to be people who've lived in houses in Europe that just perform better than Australian homes, and they've come back and gone, it's ridiculous that that our homes have to be so cold in winter or they have to be so hot in summer. We want to renovate or build and do differently. So I'm thinking of Cameron Munro and David, the client on and Yvonne, or the clients on Alwood's PassivHaus, and the other clients that I've seen. And there's also that environmental, it's in alignment with their values and beliefs generally about their role, purpose and in the planet. But I'm really curious to see what happens for people in terms of their uptake of it. So, Well,
it's gaining huge momentum. That's how I feel. Like I started a few years ago now, and since I didn't know about it. I didn't know about PassivHaus until I saw Claire talk, and then emailed the designer. I did the course and emailed the designer and built my first one, and it's just like taken off since then. And there was only 9 or 10 in Australia when I first built that house, and now I've got 2 under my belt, and then I've got 4 more in the pipeline. And I've know other builders that have built passive houses, and they've got more coming up. So it's just the knowledge, like people, you don't know what you don't know, and so I think that the momentum is just taking shape, and like just going like full steam ahead right now. And I think it's great. I really love it. Like I hope that more people become involved, and I'd love for it to be a standard. I think that's something that would be really important for people, just people in general, to have this as a standard, because just based on the energy rating, like I've never seen a passive house over 7 stars. So you can just see where that energy rating's lacking. The star rating system, I should say, is lacking. So
you've never seen a standard home over 7 stars? Is that what you mean? Or
I've never seen a passive house
under
passive
7
house
stars
over 7 stars. So 7.4 stars, I believe. That's so with the energy rating system.
Oh, okay. I get what you mean. You've never seen it. You've never seen it rate higher than 7.4 stars. Yet that it's actually out of the ballpark in terms of what it can do. Yeah,
well above and beyond what that.
Isn't that interesting?
What a 10-star home, let's say, could be, because of the way that the software that tells you what every star rating your home's going to be.
Gotcha.
Has very limited information to put in there. So it's just, so if people are looking at I want a 10-star home, just might want to look at what that actually means.
Build a passive house instead. Yeah. Do you know the other thing that strikes me about the passive house community and my, what I've been learning about it and all of you in the beautiful conversations I've been having, is that there is this sheer passion and commitment to this being the future of housing and being a much better alternative for people and for the planet. And there's this rising tide floats all boats approach. There's not this undercutting, competitive, they're doing a crap job, you need to come with me, animosity that I can see in lots of other parts of the industry. And instead it's this, hey, we're all on the same page. We're all trying to actually make a difference to homeowners, to housing, to the standard of living, to the standard of building. And so it's this lovely community that, you know, I was saying to Talina for her to have started this journey just designing and then learning, obviously, to getting her certification. She's basically been able to join this community of really supportive, like-minded people. And so I think for any industry professionals that are out there that might be interested in this, and it's starting to, you know, the ideas of it are starting to resonate, I think it is a really incredible community to become part of, and for homeowners to see that, yeah, it is. It's this desire to advance the future of housing. It's not about, I need the next job, so that person, you know, I need to tell you that person's not great. You know, it's I think that's something that the PassivHaus community need to be really proud of, because it's just you're all values based. That's what I'm noticing. You're all values based, and you're all really committed, and to what you really fundamentally believe in about the difference these homes make for people and for the planet. And so I think it's I think that's really exciting in terms of what that offers the homeowners in the future of the way that we build and renovate in Australia. So, and around the world, actually.
What's the point in keeping knowledge to yourself? That's the way. That's my thing. You know, it doesn't, like, I know I'm going to have enough work for the rest of my working career, and that's fine. And so what I can share with other builders or other people to help them build a better home and for people, then I'm more than happy to share that, you know, like why keep it a secret, you know?
Yeah. Well, my last question was going to be, how do you generally suggest people work with their builder to get a great result? I think you've given us a really great insight, and, you know, listeners and people watching this video, I really encourage you to see, so often I see homeowners just settle. They just settle for what they're being given because they don't feel they have a voice. They don't feel that they can speak up. They feel like it's just going to be a disaster anyway, and they're just going to, you know, hunker down and deal with it. Chatting to Stuart, and, you know, the UI community is trying to introduce people to more and more of, you know, this gold standard of what we can expect and what we should expect from the people that we work with. And what I love, Stuart, is seeing just how generous you are, how knowledgeable, and also how much you want to share that knowledge, and just I can see the critical role that you've played in being able to bring the Arwood's PassivHaus to life in supporting Talina and Luke and David and Yvonne in making this home happen. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with us on the podcast as well today. It's just been really great to be able to meet you and to talk to you about PassivHaus and PassivHaus building.
Well, thank you very much. I started to get a bit emotional. It was quite touching. But no, it's great. And I really appreciate you wanting to be involved with it and be able to, hopefully spread that knowledge even further. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.